We're here with the one and only Joey Finro,
That is
the
right.
in-house realtor, real estate
On
investor
retainer.
on retainer.
I think I could pull that off.
The we initially went. You're on an interview tomorrow as well with
That's right.
I can't remember what the topic is, but you
Right.
guys stay tuned for that tomorrow. There's something
You
involving
don't
you.
want to miss it.
Something with Hawaii. It sounds
Right.
fascinating. But yeah, what did you think about the markets this morning and sort of what happened there that kind of prompted this podcast, maybe this emergency
Yeah.
episode?
Yeah. No, seriously, definitely a good excuse for an emergency episode. Well, yeah, no, I saw the news. I think it was late last night, Sunday, that Warren Buffett had put in an order to, I think, sell half of his position in Apple and to sell half of it. And so I learned this like a year ago. Warren Buffett's the Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio, 51% of the whole portfolio, again hundreds of billions of dollars, was in Apple stock. I did not know that. So 51% of this massive company, holding company, was in Apple. So from the news I read on Sunday night that he's going to sell half of that, and then I believe mainly stick to cash. So that I saw that, and then I saw Patrick Bet-David, do a post about Japan's stock market. They had a really, I guess, the last like 12 hours, a really bad day in Japan for the stock market, and all the stuff. So I was definitely looking forward to seeing what happened Monday, and at least in my take, I think a couple of the Magnificent Seven, I think, did worse than the overall market. I did see the S&P was down overall 3%. I was a little bit anticipating a little bit more severe, results there, but Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft, Google, they all kind of had more of a rough day compared to everybody else. But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be a major sell-off, which it seemed like it was headed that way, and then it kind of
Yeah,
corrected. Most things were only down 3 point something percent.
right.
Nasdaq, one of the biotechs I owned initially was down like 11% because I'm all in
Yep.
on one biotech in particular. It recovered to only like 4%. Apple was like the biggest loser from
Yeah.
the big companies, 6%, and then Tesla 4. So, I mean, at the end of the
But
day,
Tesla Friday, I think, was Tesla on Friday 10%? Is that what I saw?
yeah,
Or
and
maybe it was
it's
a day last week. It was like, so Tesla's definitely, gotten hit a little bit, which I'm excited about because I want to buy. So
one of our, well, one of my holdings on my IRA, and we've had a few people on analyzing the stock on the show before. Palantir had just beat earnings, like crushed earnings, and it's up 14% after hours right now. And that's an AI slash military play. But really
ooh,
it's more of an
interesting. Yeah, I
AI
remember you
play. And
telling me about Palantir like
yeah,
years
so
ago.
years ago, and I was in and out of my Robinhood,
Yes,
but in
you
my
were.
IRA, I'm in um
Okay.
on both my account and
I'll have to look
my
at it
wife's.
again.
Yeah, I mean, technology gets profits get competed out. So there is a first
Yeah.
to market advantage. I think Palantir is unique in that they are first to market for logistics, cybersecurity. They do a lot of defense AI. Clearly, in industries like that, when you are best of breed or first, there is a huge cost to shifting. So you tend to winner take all. But in cases like Nvidia, where
Dude.
competition gets priced, like profit margins get competed down, right? And
Hmm.
I think that's what was going on with Nvidia because there are competitors now coming in and they were first, but they're gonna have to keep innovating in order to maintain
Yeah.
their, what was it, ridiculous multiples, which I also own,
Yeah.
not in my retirement. It might be mine or my wife's. I know one of ours for sure, if not both. But Nvidia's PE ratio now is 58,
Oh,
price to
okay.
earnings ratio. So it's not that out of line. Like for example, Palantir is like I just looked at it, 200. Amazon is only 38. So Nvidia is probably gonna have to come back down to earth even more, because it's at
But you see
58 right
Nancy
now.
Pelosi buy 10,000 shares last week. I can't remember which day.
Yeah.
She actually sold Microsoft. So I think she sold, I think that's around, I think it was a couple million dollars worth, and then bought that, dumped it into Nvidia, which
I
I thought
mean,
that
we
was
have we
interesting.
have to look at what NVIDIA actually does, and its GPUs, and that ultimately gets commoditized. They were first to market, but there are alternatives coming in, and unlike Amazon or even Apple or Palantir, where it's not a service necessarily, right? It's GPUs and chips. They're gonna have to innovate for the P ratio to be
Hmm.
anywhere in these at these levels, which I don't know, maybe they're doing. I only own some very small amount
Yeah, me
in
too.
one of our retirement accounts. Can't remember can't remember which
Yeah,
one, and I probably won't sell because it's not a all or nothing. Like this will never go to zero, but
yeah,
you're gonna have to question the multiples at some point, and I think that's what the market's doing, questioning multiples of some of these overvalued companies. Alphabet, which is Google, well, they innovate a lot. Their PE ratio is 23,
yeah, that's great.
which is pretty dang low for
Yeah, for
considering
such a
they
big
own YouTube.
company. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, right. Yeah,
and they're in the AI race, like
yeah,
front
they
and
are.
center. Unlike Apple, who
That's a
just
good
partnered
point.
with OpenAI, Meta, who's
Hmm.
also dominating the AI race, in my opinion, their
Yeah,
PE is 24. So, you know, these
Google and
companies,
Face, yeah, Meta.
they're low PE ratios.
I would probably pick Google over, Meta, because it's like I'm just curious, like is Facebook going to be around another 10 years? And maybe it is because the whole, ads, I think they're getting better and better at ads, but it's, if the users go away, I guess Meta could stick around with Instagram. So maybe that now the Meta
Instagram, WhatsApp, um, and
does,
then
do they own WhatsApp?
Oculus. Yeah, they own WhatsApp
Wow. Okay. All right.
and Oculus. So, they may have failed with their metaverse thing or whatever.
For sure. They
But
changed the name. Dang, dude.
that infrastructure is there, man. And if you notice subtle things, like if you open your Instagram app and you go to
Right.
explore,
Right.
it's already AI. So
It is. Yeah.
I don't I would take both. I don't know which one does better. I mean, in a way, you can say Google's more caught up in the woke movement
Yeah.
versus Meta.
Yeah.
Meta seems to stay out of it more. So you can argue, like, there's a case for both not doing as well 10 years from now. I think they're both safe plays 10 years from now. I actually think these ratios are cheap for them, like, considering that they're still innovating.
When
Um,
such a big market cap to have that low of a PE ratio, I think, yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty phenomenal. Generally more of a smaller, is in, under 30 or 14 to,
Yeah.
24 is pretty dang good,
And
you
generally, the
know.
higher the PEs, the more you expect them to innovate. Like Tesla, PE ratio of 56, which is
Yeah.
actually not that high considering
For, yeah,
they're
for
inventing
them.
robots and they might be first to
Literally.
market with that and fully self-driving cars and then the AI
Yeah.
component. Like you can argue they could be higher and Nvidia is at the same basically PE ratio as Tesla, 58.
Yeah.
And then Apple's in the high 30s, I believe, right? What I said, high 30s, which Apple's not really
Which,
innovating. 31,
yeah,
31
yeah,
is Apple. So I think
dude, that's,
Apple, when it gets
yeah.
closer to Meta and Google, is a more fair comparison. Now they do own the high-end market, which is more recession proof, and there is something to be said about that for Apple
Yeah.
being a safe haven in a recession, especially with their open AI partnership for the new iPhones. It's going to make it mandatory to upgrade for once. I think Apple is not going to go anywhere either. Like the question is it overvalued or not right now? And I'd be on the
Well,
sidelines right now.
Warren Buffett thinks so.
If Warren Buffett thinks so, you should
Yeah.
stay on the sidelines. I'm
Yeah.
outside of my retirement accounts. I'm on the sidelines for all stocks except Bitcoin and AQST, which is my favorite
See, I'm
biotech.
almost, I think I told you, I think I have more stock outside of my like non-brokerage account or non-retirement account in my personal brokerage account than my retirement, you know. And I'm not saying I'm doing it right, you know, my envision for that was to, you know, money I didn't necessarily need now, but then one day I could use to buy real estate, as I've been talking to you and Chris about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, just putting it somewhere else to work, but still wanted to be in, you know, a part of some upside somewhere, you know. So that's kind of what I had felt like this, you know, just my non-retirement brokerage account is. But, you know, I'm curious. So what do you think? So, yeah, a question that I'm going to say something. So what do you think is going to happen the rest of this week? Do you think that the market is going to, you know, have some, or are we going to have some more? And I'll say my point too after you. But you know, I think one of the reasons why today was, you know, today was still a red day. We were expecting worse, but still 3% in the S&P 500 for one day. But I
Well,
saw that
especially
I
how
think that there
violent it
were,
was early on.
yeah, that's true. Uh, I think the Wall Street was expecting the job reports to be 179,000 jobs created, and I believe it turned out to be 114,000. So it was lower. I think that's one of the reasons. Plus this fear of a global recession kind of thing, like we talked about with Japan and the rest of the world is just having a little bit harder time in the stock market right now, worse than America. Um, and some are saying, well, those job creations are a lot of like part-time jobs, so they're not necessarily like, you know, full-time jobs that's really contributing to the maximum of, you know, to the marketplace in America. But so yeah, so going back to my first question is, what do you think that it's going to get worse later this week? Is this just the beginning? Do you think this is like a nothing burger?
I think the recession actually started when the Fed first increased rates
Dude, good
about,
point.
when was that? Late
Two and a
22?
half years ago.
Yeah.
I know
So
exactly. I know the date.
you know the date because you've been affected by it in real estate,
Yes,
right? So what was it, like
exactly.
December of 22 or
20. It was February, late February of 2022. Yeah,
okay.
where we started, and then I remember it was like I think less than a month. It went up like 1%. It went
Yeah.
from like 3 to 4% like that, and then I think another month it went from 4 to 5%. I mean
Mm-hmm.
it scaled pretty quickly, faster than I've ever seen it raise. And
Yeah.
I've been doing this only 11 years, but that's the fastest I've seen any rates go up.
And government spending is part of GDP. So that's when GDP started slowing down.
Yeah,
That's when employment started slowing down. That's when companies went crazy with raising prices. And
yeah, that's right.
really because of the excess capital that was in after COVID and 0% interest rate environment. So I actually think the recession started around then. I think this is like the climax. And
Okay.
there was no black swan event like we thought it would be. Like
Mm,
there were multiple potential. There was the war with Ukraine. It
yeah,
was that
dude.
was a pump fake. There was the Palestine Israel thing, which is still not over, which actually might pop off anytime. But so far it seems like a pump fake. The Japanese yen yesterday, okay, it affected the market for a little bit. Maybe not a pump fake. I think people are expecting it to happen, and the fact that it's not
Like a
fully
letdown.
correcting. Yeah, because people started talking as soon as the news came out yesterday. Okay, well, the Fed's gonna come out and print
Right,
money, and then rates are gonna get cut, which still may or may not happen. I mean,
right.
I think this is peak recession that lasts another year or so, and you may see deflation. You may see prices coming down. I actually think when rates get cut, and maybe by even 1%, so you go from like 7% mortgage rates to 6, or maybe what are they now? Like 6.5, you go to 5.5?
Yeah, no, so I was actually, that was one thing I was going to talk about. So to answer your question real quick, today it's at so it actually went down. This is for an average excuse me, 6.34. But on Friday it went down 0.25%. So rates have, and this is for an average 30-year fixed loan, 6.34. So we haven't been below 6.5%. It actually could be close to the beginning of the rate hikes. So, this is a good sign. Well, who heck that knows what's going to happen, in the future, but hopefully we keep going down. But yeah, that's where rates are at today.
Well, hopefully we go down until you can't
Yes.
anymore, right? And
Yeah.
the Fed has every interest to go down prior to elections to keep Biden in,
Yeah. Yeah. Which, yeah. Or
which they may not
Kamala.
be able to
Yeah.
correct it this time around. So
Too late.
fundamentally, the
Yeah.
system's broken. But
Yeah.
in the short term, I think it's going to, and Kathy Wood said this best, we're gonna grow our way out of this. Now,
Hmm.
the only problem I see is that a lot of the growth that we're depending on is AI stuff,
Hmm.
which is a race to the bottom because
Hmm.
technology is deflationary, like highly deflationary. So profit margins get competed out of the market. And
Unless you're Apple.
well, yeah, well, not so
He's probably
much.
that's not he. Apple is probably the only company that's where it's probably not true. But I think you're right. TVs, DVD players. I guess that's DVD players isn't necessarily technology, but Wi-Fi services, like the price starts high and then works its way down. Yeah, I think
But
generally that's true.
even of
Yeah,
services, like we see it in
yeah,
research, the
yeah,
CROs
mm,
initially high profit margins bring competitors. Competitors use the latest technology. They pass
yeah,
that on to the consumer. And what is that latest technology? It's AI. So you will
right.
have more markets, but more smaller markets,
Mm.
in my opinion. And I'm not sure
So
what Chris is doing
yeah.
here, but he's making a political statement or something with his screen. Ah, how's it going, Chris?
My camera wasn't working. Sorry about that.
Hey
Yeah.
man,
Well, nor
sorry
is
you
mine. Yeah.
traded in your Corvette, but did you do a last minute last day video?
Bernie, a burnout. Zzz.
So I got all kinds of funny stories with that. I don't want to. I don't want
Is
Derail
that
this?
to.
tomorrow's
Yeah,
video? Yeah.
derail the conversation. But yeah, I got all kinds of stories.
Good.
Well,
That's
we can't
good.
wait. So we're doing a
Just
channel
talk about real
rebrand.
estate.
Yeah, we're doing a channel rebrand. No more music. It's just serious stuff.
Just curious.
Book reviews and things like that. But yeah, so Kathy Wood said we're going to grow our way out, which we're going to have to grow by a bunch of micro markets, like companies like Palantir that find a niche, like a white space using AI, right?
Hmm.
That doesn't get competed out because the government doesn't necessarily want to switch. Once they find somebody that's stable, like the Department of Defense, the last thing they want to do is switch platforms if something's working well for them, right? And then verticals do get competed down. I mean, look in real estate, man. Look at what Zillow and
Mm.
Redfin are doing to realtor commissions.
So
Like that gets priced, profit margins get priced down ultimately. It's a
being
race to the bottom.
being I'm joining it almost an hour in, I assume.
30
Close
minutes.
to it, yeah.
Okay.
Me and Joey been
So
on
Joey
one
had a
now.
little bit of issues. Yeah.
so are you two in agreement with what you just proposed? I'm just
More or
curious.
less, I think.
Okay, then I'll
Wait,
offer
wait, wait. About what?
a counter.
Account. Huh?
I'll offer a counter
Oh, you'll
argument.
offer a counter. Okay.
So
He
there's a
doesn't
number.
even, Chris wasn't even here, but he's gonna offer a counter. I love
Yeah.
this
Well, no,
guy.
you
I
were
kind of
just
want to hear
saying.
what he has to say.
You were just saying Kathy Woods is saying we'll grow out of this, which I assume you're both agreeing with.
No, I haven't said yes or no to
And I
that.
haven't agreed with that either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just saying that's what Kathy would
I
say.
said that's what
Got
Kathy
it.
Wood said, and
Okay.
I said there's a way where markets, because technology ultimately is a deflationary force. So profit
And
margins
I
get
had said
competed
unless
down.
you're Apple, but I feel like everything else is. I think
Even
that's true.
Apple,
Even hardware space every year, what they say, it doubles and become,
yeah.
like your disk space, it
But
doubles.
even Apple, part of
18
the reason
months. Yeah,
Apple,
there's a rule for that.
part of the reason Apple's getting punished is because they're not innovating anymore and they
Dude,
have
yeah, for the
lost their
last
margins.
15 years, you're right. They've just made their phones faster
Yep.
and more memory. It's like, guys, come on. I mean, dude, Steve Jobs is there like every 2 years, something earth-shattering was happening.
Right. So margins get
No, I completely agree with that.
But
competed down.
why spend the money on research and development when you know most people will either A, have to buy a new phone because they seem to design them so they break every 2 years, or B,
True.
people have this thing where they have to have the newest thing, the newest
Oh,
fad.
for sure.
So
Because,
why
Chris,
even develop new? Why invest in that?
because
Because if you want to last,
Apple's market is the luxury consumer. They're not
for
going
sure.
after frugal
Well,
people like you or people in India that want Androids. They're
Hey,
going
hey,
after
hey! I recognize that insult.
it's
are you from
maybe an
India,
insult or
Chris?
maybe not. They have
No,
a
he's
market.
calling me cheap. That's what he's calling me.
Is
Nice
that
He's
way.
calling
true?
you
Is it
Indian.
true or not? I mean, it's true. They go after a certain
I'm
market.
frugal, not cheap. Frugal.
They don't want the frugal market. They
Okay.
want the
Right.
high profit margin market.
They want the value. Someone that's willing to spend value. They know it's expensive, but you get all the, but Chris, the reason why is because Apple, their like competitive advantage since 87 or whenever they started was that they're, uh starting or not starting, but at the forefront of technology and creating new things and being highly innovative. That's just part of their DNA. So if they don't do that, it's like, dude, what's the difference between you and Microsoft now? They were always leading. So it just looks bad, especially someone that's been an Apple fan since 2010, probably. I wasn't before then. It's a little bit of letdown the last like over 10 years, probably 50, since unfortunately Steve Jobs had passed away. They've just been just making stuff smaller. The phone's a
Yeah.
little bit thinner.
Living either buy them
Apple
or
can, yeah.
yeah. So
But
no,
Apple doesn't acquire companies. They
they
have
don't.
never.
Yeah, so they squash them in some capacity, either through regulation. Hey, lobbyist, go make it. Congress passed this law that's an entry to,
Yeah. No,
it's a
you're right.
barrier to entry.
You're right.
So yeah, they make it
I
impossible
don't
for
think
others.
Apple's ever done that.
I'm
That
sure they
hasn't been their
have.
strategy.
Well,
I'm sure they have.
I've heard Tim Cook say they acquire between 18 to 25 companies a year, but they keep it quiet. Now that I don't know if that's true.
So they're not
Tim Cook
household
said that in
names. They're acquiring probably technology
I think
that
so
they
too.
bring in-house. So they
Right.
essentially are acqui-hiring. That's
Yes. Yeah.
different than
Yeah.
buying Tesla when they had the opportunity 10 years
They
ago,
did.
or
Yes,
buying
they did.
Peloton, which they had the opportunity.
Good thing they didn't.
I think they would have turned it around though. I think
That's
Apple
true.
would have made that work. Point is,
I think you're right.
even Apple has established a moat and a luxury market.
Blue Ocean.
In order for them to grow, they just needed more products. Like, okay, now we need to do a new vertical, which is the
You're
headset.
right.
The headset
Yeah.
failed. The laptop, there's
Yeah.
only so many phones and
The
laptops
lenses,
and
yeah, I don't
iPods.
5,000 for the lens thing. Yeah,
Apple TV's decent at streaming.
yeah,
Like, that's a
yeah.
decent service.
But I think they still could have done something like magnificent with that.
Yeah.
Really, the Apple TV hasn't really gotten any better
They could
since
have
it
made an
came out.
actual TV. And like
So
they
Yeah,
did not, they dropped the ball on a lot and their PE was in the 50s and now it's back in the low 30s. So going towards 20s, which it should be because that's where Google and Meta is. And I don't think they're that much more special than those two. I actually think those two companies are innovating more.
well, I think the other thing Apple has now, which I think they're why they're I mean their sales are insane. It's their so Apple Watch was a new thing since after Steve Jobs died. So that was under Tim Cook. but also their subscription. So, like their iCloud storage,
Okay.
that's a lot of people pay for that. A lot of people pay for that. So that subscription, and then I think is there another subscription? So there's a couple other subscription models and products that they're selling. Well, really just one, the Apple Watch. But the Apple Watch, I mean, that's a pretty big thing. The Apple Watch
Yeah,
is.
it's a new category. That's
Yeah,
what they needed. But look,
they
Apple
needed they
has
needed two more really since
Apple has Chris was asking why I don't think their higher P is justified, but it is slightly in the sense that their consumer is more recession proof than Google and Meta's.
for
Considering
sure it is.
Google and Meta innovate more than them, however. So there's a balance, and there was a huge delta between the two, and now it's closer. So I think Apple's still got a way to go down. Um, just a
I
little.
hope so,
Yeah.
so I can buy more. But
I'm not buying right now. I'm staying on the sidelines. Just all I have is my biotech.
or so Dan, and then Chris, answer this. Do you think the stock market's going to get worse? Because that's kind of Chris, when you came in, that's we were talking about the stock market. Then we're going to touch on real estate. Um, Today wasn't as bad as what we were hoping to. It was still bad. But do you think this week, next week, is it, just with everything going on, is it going to get worse?
Well, first off, I almost nailed it. I said yesterday in a text between me and Dan and another person. I put the over on I put the over under at 1,000 on today. That's what it would lose, right? And it was 1,033. Perfect, right? But
Dang.
aside, do I think it'll be worse? I do.
Okay.
I think it's just starting personally.
Okay.
Um,
So percentage wise, so you think it's just starting? Is it going to be just a couple, like, you think this is going to be like months or
well,
weeks?
so while I was using the bathroom today,
Nice.
TMI. So I was Googling what are typical percentage losses, right, in a downturn. 10% is very common, usually happens once a year, right?
Yes, that does.
This isn't even 10%. It's 5.
Well, that's
Between between Friday and today is only 5%,
Year
in
right?
the
to date,
S&P. Is that right?
are
Yeah,
you talking S&P or Dow?
Dow. It's
Oh, okay.
5% from Friday and today.
So year to date, the Dow's up 2.69%.
Exactly. So you have at least 5% to go just for your one yearly 10% correction.
Right.
I think it'll be worse than that. I think we're looking at probably 25 to 50%. That's my opinion, but
Whoa.
Because year to date, the S&P is up still 9.35%.
Yeah.
so and my reasoning behind that is the two, which I've texted about and spoken about before, is the 2 and 10-year yield. Usually
Right.
the markets correspond and correct according to length of time they're inverted. This is the longest inversion ever. And
Right.
there's been plenty of 50% corrections, not a lot, but I think I read there's been 8 throughout the history of the stock market, 50% corrections. And if this is the longest inversion ever, well, then you have to have a 50% correction. If
history repeats itself.
if history repeats, exactly.
It generally
Okay, so
doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Yeah,
okay, so you think it's going to be a little bit longer? Okay,
yeah,
got it.
I would say
then Dan, you think it'll be a
minimum.
little bit shorter, like couple weeks thing, several weeks things, not 6 months worth of downturn.
Are you asking me or Chris?
Dan.
Oh, I think today is the beginning. Like, I think we've entered peak recession.
Oh,
I think we've been in the recession for about a year and a half
yeah.
since the Fed first raised rates. I think it ends about a year out from now, and it's gonna be like
Okay.
this. Not this dramatic, but everyone just kind
Yeah.
of gets used to this
Yep.
volatility for at least throughout the end of the year or until the election. Maybe we get an election rally with Trump winning. If he does, war generally does good long term for the markets,
Which
bad
would be Kamala, you're
initially.
saying, right? Kamala's war, Trump economy. Either way,
Biden
win.
is war right now. Like war is currently
And
now.
Kamala wins, it would continue with war.
And if Trump wins and inherits a war, he's not going to end it.
Okay.
You don't think so? Oh, okay.
No, the war, yeah, he won't be able to end it. He can prevent it right now if
Oh,
he
I
was in.
see. I see.
It might
Okay, that's a
already
good
be too
point.
late. Might already be too late, but depends. But yeah, more of this with less drama and then just everyone. I mean, 3% ultimately is what the Dow lost today. So if it just maintains this every month for the rest of the year, that's what, August, September, October, that's 6 months of 3% a month. So you've got 18% right
18%.
there. Yeah. I think that's, and I think rates go down.
I was just gonna go to rates. Okay, so
I just hope my
if it's
biotech's the
going down,
outlier enough, like to be
so
have
if
enough
the stock market's
catalysts.
going down, do you think would rates go down with it to kind of,
Yeah, the Fed's
you know?
gonna have to
Okay,
between now and September, or they were gonna do an emergency rate cut today. I
yeah,
think they had that meeting.
yeah,
They're gonna
but
give some commentary at that conference they have in 2 weeks, and then in
yeah.
September they have their official meeting where even before all this stuff they were supposed to lower them because of the
So,
Biden, they're to help the Democrats win.
My thing is
so
they just,
I just want to address what he just said. So, because I'd always thought the same thing when they lower rates, it actually helps the stock market. It's actually the reverse of that. I was watching somebody showed a graph, I don't remember who. It wasn't Bravo Dan. But I don't know who it was. It was somebody with a little more technical skills. And it only has a 1 or 2 day bump, and then it actually
Yeah.
corrects worse
Yes. When
after
you
they
actually are in a
lowering
recession,
rates.
yes, lowering rates is to prevent recession. If you already are in a recession and you lower rate, it's just a
Makes it worse.
further signal that it's a weak market.
Yep. It makes
interesting.
it
And
worse.
the markets are
So
smart
not, so
enough to
obviously
know
not during COVID, that didn't work, but that wasn't necessarily a normal, that wasn't a recession. Yeah, COVID
COVID
wasn't
wasn't
a,
a recession yet. No,
yeah,
the
right.
recession came after, I think, well, you just
I'm gonna
said
look at that. That's interesting. Okay, got it.
February 22 when they first raised rates. I think that's when the
Hmm.
recession first started, and now I think we're in peak recession until end of this year and maybe through
I wonder if
till
that could
next
be
year.
like a byproduct of just a recession outside of rates, and then the Feds just happen to lower the interest rates to help the overall market.
Well,
But you're still in, you know what
that's
I'm
the
saying? Like you're
intent. That's the intent, right?
right.
So what does the government do well?
But is the rates actually making it
Nothing.
worse, or is the
Exactly.
market already falling
Yeah. The markets
and
are
they
they correct
happen to say, "Hey, let's lower the rates to just try to have a smooth landing or whatever."
they correct too late. They always correct.
Yeah.
They're always too late to the game.
Well, and actually, that's what I was going to say. I feel like the Feds, they kept the rates too low for too long, and now they're keeping it too high for too long. So that
Yeah.
goes exactly with what you're saying. Like, man, did we really need 3 or 2.5% for a year? Like, I mean, obviously, is that great? Yeah, but it's like, dang, dude, have we ever had rates that low? It's too bad you kept them so low so long, because it's just, we're paying for it today, kind of
Yep.
thing. So at least just
Yep.
my take. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I agree. They're always late.
So I think, okay, so by the end of this year, I think we'll be at 5.875. That's bold. I actually was going to say 6%, but I think because we have, what is that, 5 more months of the year left. Yeah, 5 months. I think we'll be at 5.875 by December 31st. You heard it here. What do you guys think?
I would love
So,
that.
so yes, Dan would love that.
So would I.
Yeah, you too. You both
Yeah,
have
I'm praying for
rationale.
that.
Who wouldn't?
Actually, why don't we say a
Well,
word of prayer right now?
Anyone that missed their chance to buy a house, because you're gonna have this weird
Yeah.
situation where house prices won't go up because I think we're in deflationary period as well. people just can't afford higher, and then rates come down. So you're gonna have a temporary increase to affordability of houses, and it'll last for a year maybe, and then they start. I like Chris said, shit hits the fan at some point. This is not sustainable because those bonds. I mean, didn't Japan like dump all the treasuries, or they were going
Right.
to today?
Mhm.
So, well, other countries are gonna eventually do that too.
But
And
actually, that's a good point.
that's really going to hurt the U.S. too when that happens.
Well, it's already the beginning of the end since before we were born. Maybe not,
Well,
maybe not quite Chris, but maybe even Chris.
hey, that's the
No,
second time.
69, man.
So,
That's where
so,
you're,
so,
it's
to Dan's,
debatable.
to both of your point, you're funny. So to both of your points, um, there's actually a way to tell how long the rates will stay down, right? Because you're both interested. You look at and you would expect they're going to start printing money as soon as the shit really does hit the fan a bit, right? Which is any time, any day now, especially when they have to buy the bonds back, they have to print money to do that. So when that occurs, how quickly between the time that they really start printing money until rates go up? Because there is a lag.
You mean
There's
the
always a
reverse?
lag. No, rates go up. So they'll lower them to try
When
and
they
help.
print money,
No, hear me out. There's always a lag to what they do. The markets don't act instantaneously upon what the government is doing. For example, they kept the rates down for 2 years. They were able to keep them down for 2 years while the government was printing more money than it ever has. Literally
right?
ever has. So that's not
Yeah.
an instantaneous response, right, to the rates going up. Are you following what I'm saying?
No,
So, okay. So why do the rates go up?
because I think you're saying two things.
No, I'm not. So why do rates go up? Because there's no market, it's supply and demand. There's no market for buying their bonds. They have to raise rates in order to get people to buy their bonds, to buy their debt.
So they're more
that's-
attractive. Yes.
Right. So there's more, so they can get the money they need to do other things, right? So the
But
market
if they
doesn't.
print money to buy
Mhm.
back those bonds, isn't that lowering the rates?
So it depends on what means that they're doing this, does it not? Right. So are they looking for buyers or are they buying their own bonds, which the government does do a little bit of, but not a whole lot.
During COVID, what did they do? Didn't they buy their own?
No, they sold them to the banks. The banks got screwed on this. They just had to buy them back from the banks because the banks were going to go bankrupt, right? Because they didn't have the cash to cover the bonds that their clientele was demanding cash for. So they had to sell these bonds back at a loss, right? Because the rates went up. Right.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to look at that because I thought that they were printing money to buy back the bonds to make their rates go low. But I could be, I'm not 100% certain on that, so I have no idea.
The government only controls the overnight rate, right? They don't control the rate of the bonds. They don't. They have no control over.
Correct, but they were buying them, right? So they were right.
For example, the market, the bond rates just tanked, right? They went down the most I've ever seen since I started following this crap 3 years ago. Okay. I actually have Dan's gonna laugh at me, but I actually have an Excel spreadsheet. When I think about it, I write down what the rates are, right?
Dude, cool.
Just because I'm
Dang.
curious so that I know in the future what dictates when you should be concerned about this, that, or the other thing, or when do you jump into the markets, right? This is by far the most they've come down in a 2-day period, by far. I mean, like triple, okay? Maybe even more than that. So why did that happen? Because everybody's leaving the markets, right? And they're taking that money, they have to have something to do with it. So they're buying bonds. That's what they're doing. They're buying bonds. And since there's such a high demand, they can collapse the price, right? The rate. It's just simple
Right.
supply and demand, right?
Right.
So if the reverse happens and they're printing bonds, right, you would expect the rates to go up, right?
If there's no one to buy the bonds, correct,
Right.
rates go up.
Right.
If the
When they-
bonds are being bought,
So they're
rates go down.
selling tons of money. They're printing tons of cash, which in turn causes printing bonds, right? We need people to loan us the money, or companies or countries or whatnot. So in turn, that raises the interest rate that they have to offer because there's not going to be enough buyers. Thus, but
if
there's a
they
lot,
don't buy it, yes.
right? But in terms of
Right.
of
Because you're
how-
saying if they just flood it with the bonds, yeah.
right, the rates
Yeah.
have to go up to get the buyers.
If nobody buy, yeah. If it's slow to buy, yep.
Which it will be, especially when there's a market downturn or not a market, but a worldwide recession. But for whatever reason, there's a lag on the rest of the rates, right? This doesn't immediately impact. You'll have to look this up. This is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. You can
No, I
look
think
this
you're right.
up.
Yeah,
You
I
can
think you're
look
right.
this up historically. What is the time delay between your mortgage rate going up and the bond rates going up?
That's it. Yeah. That's the next video. And
So-
real quick question before Dan goes, because I know you guys have to go at 3:30. So let's say stock market is going down 3%. Let's just say what you just said every single month. And then rates come down. Let's say they go to 5.5 or 5%. They come down significantly by the end of this year. What do you guys think home prices would do?
I think
Depends on
home
it.
prices go down.
Yeah, it depends on the
Okay.
recession. How severe is the recession? If it's severe, yeah, everything goes down.
I
Okay.
don't. We're gonna enter a deflationary period where things just get cheaper because people can't afford it. But we're also
Yeah.
gonna enter a period where rates gotta go back up, which is gonna make everything worse.
Literally.
And if rates don't go up, then you're gonna have deflation followed by hyperinflation. If rates do go up, then you're gonna have deflation followed by more deflation, which is gonna be terrible. I don't know which one's worse. One is Great Depression, which I don't think they allow, and the other one's more likely the outcome.
Well, they're not
Okay.
gonna allow deflation for a long period of time.
It's
They just
happening,
won't.
though.
They won't.
Yeah.
They won't allow it. They can't sustain the debt if there's deflation.
Starbucks, which never cuts prices, is already starting to do bundles and things like that because they're noticing people are spending less.
No doubt, but
I just read that today.
true.
But how do they get out of this? I know
You
you guys. How do you get out of this?
You don't
Printing.
get out
Can't-
of it. This
Yes,
is
you
how
do.
nation states die.
You can get out of deflation, you print. They
But
would
that
pref-
just makes it worse.
they would prefer hyperinflation over deflation. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Well,
that
how
I
you-
agree.
How are they gonna pay $35 trillion in debt
Yeah. No, I understand.
when there's no money coming in through deflation? There's no
Yeah.
tax revenue, there's no money from anywhere. They have to have money to pay the debt. Right? So they
Mhm.
would prefer hyperinflation over deflation, and they'll cause it to happen. They'll just start printing it more than they did during COVID. And I think that's coming.
I think that's coming too.
Damn.
I completely agree with Dan. I think we're gonna have deflation for a while. They
It's
can't,
gonna be those who own assets and those who don't. Like the wealth gap
I
is
know.
gonna be exponentially growing.
Yeah.
People
And I
are-
feel like it already had the last 4 years. It has
Oh, that's
tremendously.
nothing. That's gonna be nothing compared to
Mm.
what is about to come.
hey,
Dang.
for
And this is your
everybody,
last chance to buy, really. When these next rate cut, it's your last chance to buy assets, homes,
I don't
specifically
disagree.
real estate.
Don't disagree. I absolutely don't disagree. And just FYI to anybody who's interested in history, go back to when Nixon took us off the gold standard and how things changed historically. There has never been more than like a 1% per year difference between wealth increase between the rich, middle class, and poor. It's just been off the charts since then. The rich have just exponentially grown richer. The gold standard prevented that, or any standard of some sort to link the dollar to something, so it just can't be printed as the government sees fit. Prevents.
Chris,
Yeah.
the community demands to learn more about this. Please upload your
The
video.
commu-
Be dutiful and upload your video. And we're rebranding Chris and Dan show, so no more music, guys. This is not times to be laughing and having fun. This is time to get serious.
Not at all.
Because you will own
That's
nothing
why
and
you
be
were just
happy.
laughing, and so were you.
You will own nothing and be happy, guys. So get serious.
Get serious and be happy with nothing.
That's right. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and stay tuned for Chris turning in his Corvette footage live. Bye bye.